I used to think like she really does not love us. Like, what kind of parent? Looking back now, there's method to that madness. Child that you're carrying has a risk of diabetes in future when they are an adult, when you're not even here. And I don't think people have yet to understand or are aware about that. She does not eat those things. So I asked her, why would you not eat them? Because I find them fine. And she said those are foods of poverty. And this was the first time I had encountered this concept that green grams are foods of poverty. Too much nzuo gives you constipation and intestinal obstruction.
Oh my.
So I used to have to deal, yes, too much. Work in fertility, and I don't treat patients above the BMI of 35. And that is a very tough conversation to have with someone because it increases the risk for miscarriages when your BMI is already high. Welcome to yet another episode of Filling the Gap, where we're looking to fill the gap for what your doctor and your mama may not tell you. My name is Dr. Dorcus Muchiri. I'm an obstetrician, gynecologist, fertility and menopause specialist, but having conversations about things that we didn't learn growing up. Today, my guest is a very exciting guest. The conversation is probably going to go not the way we had planned, but we are excited to have a chat with my very good friend and mentor and coach and many other things, Dr. Jaki Wasike Sihanya. And she's a doctor. She'll tell us what kind of doctor. Karibu sana.
Thank you, Dorcas.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm Dr. Jaki Wasike Sihanya. I'm an educator. Actually, my doctorate is a doctorate in education. So I'm an educator. I'm also a coach. I coach leaders and entrepreneurs, as well as adolescents and young adults. Yeah, that's what I do now.
Okay.
But I mean, my background is quite different.
Tell us.
I actually spent 27 years, well, definitely more than 25 years in the corporate sector, in marketing and communications. So that's also, that's also a part of me, even though I'm not really doing marketing anymore. And as a part of that career, I worked with some organizations that focused on food and nutrition. So I developed an interest in, things like that. Yeah, and I guess we're gonna talk more about that.
Yes. So tell me a little bit about your interest in adolescents and teenagers. Where did that come from? Why?
Okay, I think that first of all, as a parent, I have raised them. But I think I was very lucky because I started my training as a coach back in 2010.
Okay.
Actually, before 2010, I finished my first certification in 2010. And my children were just getting into teenage around that time. So I had the advantage of having certain skills that I had gained as a coach. And I guess I was using these skills on my kids. And I think people noticed because my children's friends would remark on my relationship with my children. And because I was very intentional about certain things I wanted to, to impart to my kids or how I wanted to raise my kids. I started doing a lot of things with my kids and their friends. There are some things, when you, as parents, I think parents know this. You tell your kids this, they just dismiss you. But somebody else tells them exactly the same thing and they take it seriously. Yeah. So I started doing things with for my children with their friends. And, in the process, we would just have conversations. For example, I had this cooking club. It was called Minatieno Cooking Club. I would just teach kids how to cook basic things, bake bread, make burgers, make a salad, make some desserts. But, in the process, you have some really deep conversations. And you can really impart important life lessons. And then this just grew into actually a workshop that I ran for more than 12 years
Oh.
every year. So as my kids grew, I changed the activities. So the cooking club, they were 5, 9. By the time they were 11, they were like experts. They really didn't need, that kind of thing. So as they were getting into teenhood, I started doing, like holiday activities. They would do embroidery, painting, and things like that. Again, with their friends. And, you're just having conversations about many different things.
Yeah.
And that grew into a workshop that I used to run for, initially it was for class 7, class 8, as they're preparing for their exams.
Yeah.
And we would talk about setting smart goals, study skills, self-motivation. And then my kids are growing, and then now it became a conversation with high schoolers as they're leaving high school, talking about the things that you don't learn in school. Initially I called it out of uniform into the world, because that's really what happens.
Yeah.
The fact that there are no more rules. You need to manage finances. You need to think about, how you're spending your time and things like that. And I actually ran that workshop for more than 12 years. In fact, it's COVID that put a halt to it, because it's something I used to do. I used to do in person.
Okay.
I don't do it anymore. It became an online course. It's called How to Manage Life After High School. Yeah. So, but the thing is, in these interactions with young people, one of the things that struck me is how, a 17, 18, 19-year-old would say to me, this is the first time that somebody has ever really listened to me. As in,
and they understood.
They don't get listened to. Yeah, they don't get listened to. You're shut down if you have an idea. If you thinking about going into a career that maybe your parents are not anticipating for you. You are told you are being rude, or you're wasting opportunities, or things like that. There's a lot of emphasis on grades and. Yeah, so I just realized that maybe these kids need an advocate. Yeah, so that's where my interest came. So eventually, now that I was a qualified coach and all that, I would do the executive coaching and everything. But then I also always did some work with these young people. Yeah.
Okay.
And now actually I've sort of gone a step ahead, and now I'm training coaches of adolescents and young adults.
Okay.
Because I think it's a gap.
Yeah, definitely. So you're feeling a gap there.
I'm feeling a gap, yes.
That's very interesting. I like that story, because adolescents, even in health, they get quite almost forgotten. People are talking a lot about like periods for girls and sexuality and that stuff for like even the boys, and their their own health is not discussed until when girls are starting to get pregnant. So if you get pregnant very early, you're 15, 16, then suddenly there's a conversation around your body and your health. But teenagehood in itself, there's a lot of gaps even within the medical space. So I'm encouraged that you're filling another gap for the adolescents. That's really nice to hear.
Yeah.
So you mentioned something there briefly about food, and you were teaching them how to cook. Was that coming from gaining the skill to cook, or was there something around nutrition in itself that you were emphasizing, or what was it, or was it both?
Actually, I think it was a lot of things. If we look at it from the skills point of view, I think that being able to cook is a life skill. I think it is. We all have to nourish ourselves one way or another, and cooking is one of the ways in which you can take control of what you eat and what goes into your body. But then also, I think it's an important aspect of self-efficacy. Being able to do, or being confident that you can do what you need to do in any situation. So, kid comes home from school, there's no one at home, things like that. They can go into the kitchen, make themselves a snack, or even prepare something, a wholesome meal. So there was that aspect, the skilling, the developing self-efficacy. But also, I think that if you can cook, you're more likely to pay attention to what you actually eat. even if you're buying
Yeah,
food,
yeah.
ready-made food, things like that, I think you will be more
conscious.
You'll be more conscious about what you're picking, what you're eating, how it is prepared, and the impact that that it has on you. So there was also that element. I mean, I also just enjoy cooking.
Okay.
And being in the kitchen. There's something about being in the kitchen together that also makes it easier to communicate and to talk about very many different things.
Yeah.
It's not like a structured meeting or anything like that. So there was also that element that, you know, when we're in the kitchen together, we can talk about very many things. People are more relaxed. Topics come up. You have fun. You argue. You do this. But then also you can also impart other lessons. I mean, like measurements. You're talking about amounts. You're talking about. I mean, there's also innovation. You know, what if I
Mixing
put this?
new
Okay,
things.
what have you put? What if I put this? Okay, let's try it. Let's see. It's nice. It's not nice, and that kind of thing. So for me, it was really just a lot of things put together.
Yeah.
But I mean, now when I think back and when I see some of the kids that used to come for those cooking, you know, to my club, they're in university now. Some are getting married now and things like that. And all of them have retained that interest in cooking and nutrition. So I think that it's a good basic skill to impart. Yeah.
I like that idea. If you're a parent, I think that's something to take on because you're bonding, but you're also bonding over food and what's going into our bodies. And I like food. Everyone knows that. So I feel like I should have been in a cooking club. But I do enjoy cooking. And my skill is in making very fast meals because I'm not convinced that I need to spend 3 hours in the kitchen.
Yeah, that's true.
But like you said, I'm also very conscious. Like when I buy stuff, I'm looking at what is in the contents, what am I getting out of it? Can I get it from somewhere else rather than, you know, sort of supplements, which we'll come and talk about. But I like that idea. So for our audience, if you're out there and you're looking for something to help younger people, I think this idea of a cooking club is so cool.
And you know something? It also became, I need fresh thyme. I need my own oregano. I need my own dhania. So it develops into like a kitchen garden. So now you're also able to pick fresh ingredients and things like that. It can really develop into a lot of other good habits. Yeah.
I really like it. For those who don't know me very well, I follow a gentleman who's been teaching his son from when this son was like a very small baby. I think he was 6 months. And I've watched this boy grow over the last 5 years. I think he started in COVID. Follow him on Instagram. And this is not advertisement. It's called Cooking with Levi. And Levi is such a smart boy because his articulation and words and asking for things and saying, can I mix this? And I've thrown this. And it's been so much fun. I feel like I'm part of their, you know, conversations. But he's also very articulate in explaining things and saying, oh, why salt? Why that's too much salt? That will do this, the taste. And his palate is like, I think he eats everything. And I'm like, if I were to have a child, that is like a model child. But I think it's also very intentional from the parents. And the parents, I don't think are cooks. They have some professional life, but they've made it very an intentional way of raising him. So, good. Let's talk about food then, particularly for these teenagers. I remember when I was growing up, I had, I don't want to say an issue with my mother and my folks. They never used to give us the food. Yeah. Other people used to have such fun food, like, you know, pizza. I just remember Mrs. Muchiri's efforts were fruit salads and more green salads and lots of veggies. My snacks, like my drinks, people would get like squash. We used to have quencher in those days. My mom would pack us milk. I used to think like she really does not love us. Like what kind of parent? Looking back now, there's method to that madness. But I don't know what your thoughts are about how we are doing food, especially for the younger people. Let me hear your insight and then I bring my science to why I'm very passionate about food and especially for young people.
You know, as you were talking about your mother, I was thinking about my mom. I mean, in my days, I mean, I don't know if there was pizza or anything like that. It just wasn't a part of my world.
Yeah.
And we had no luxuries. Let me just put it that way. We had no luxuries. And my mom was not one of those mothers that forced us to eat or anything. At least I don't remember being forced to eat. In fact, what my mother used to say is that she didn't want to waste food. So she would ask, I want to make dinner. Who's having dinner? You put your hands up. She counts 5 people are having dinner, and she makes her ugali for 5 people. And I mean, if you didn't like ugali and sukuma wiki, it was a question of, I mean, you can't die because you missed a meal. So basically that was the attitude. So no forcing, no nothing, no luxuries. It was basic wholesome food, you know, ugali, greens, beans, and, you know, that kind of thing. So I also sort of came into parenthood with that kind of attitude. Okay, yeah, I know kids have to eat and all that, but I also understood that they can like some things more than others, you know. So not to try and force them, but to try and understand that this one likes this one, this one doesn't like that. And I do understand that that's a privilege. I mean, not everybody can do that. But I had this thing of, like, my son doesn't like stew. You know, on that we are together. We don't really like stew. I would make, you know, like I would fry, maybe I would fry the beef with onions and things like that. Then I remove my portion and his portion. Then now I add the tomatoes and stuff like that and make the stew.
Okay.
My daughter doesn't like the ho-hos and stuff like that, so we would avoid using ho-ho and things like that. I mean, I really didn't mind doing that. After all, they're all individuals. But because of I mentioned to you that I did some work with organizations that, you know, were in the food business. And because of the knowledge that I gained from that, I really understood the importance of, you know, starting them off right as far as food is concerned. Exposing them to different tastes, different palates, minimizing the sugar, the what can I say, the preserved, you know, preserved foods, preservatives and things like that. So I really tried to implement that. And, you know, there were times my kids would say, oh, we want to go to Auntie Jane's house because her pancakes are sweeter. You know that kind of thing, as in they are really threatening to suck me as their mother. Just to encourage them to sort of eat a balanced diet. Packing them fruits, as you said your mom used to do for you, packing them fruits and stuff like that for break, and, you know, baking their snacks and that kind of thing for, you know, for them, so that, you know, we really minimize store-bought snacks and that kind of thing. And I also remember, you know, and I think if my house help here would tell you, the first thing that I bought, especially when my son was born, when he started taking, you know, like cow's milk, the first thing I would buy was enough milk for a month for him. We used to stack the boxes in the corner in the dining room, and I would say, this is for the babe, this is for the child. For tea, you have to go to the kiosk, you know, which was a little bit crazy. So I think it was just being intentional about their nutrition.
Yeah. I think people don't, some people, not everyone, may not realize what the cycle of food does for generations. And the assumption that because I'm a mom now, and if I've not eaten, people don't realize that for me, not eating properly has an impact on the fetus that you carry, and has a long-term impact up to when that child will become apparent as well. And we have now very high rates of obesity, and shockingly, the obesity is rising in low and middle income countries. So people used to say that this is a Western problem, and we're having a similar problem even in our own country, obesity rising, purely because of how we are structuring food and then how we are prioritizing what we eat. But people not realizing that if you're a lady now carrying a pregnancy and you are obese or become diabetic, your child that you're carrying has a risk of diabetes in future when they are an adult, when you're not even here. And I don't think people have yet to understand or are aware about that. I don't know if you knew about that.
Yeah, well, I think I was lucky in the sense that I had access to knowledge and
Yep.
information and stuff like
Yeah,
that. And but I'm just thinking that it's actually quite a complex matter, because what happens, I mean, I'm just trying to imagine what happens if you are a low income family and then you come into some money. I mean, like, let's say at the end of the month, the simplest way to celebrate is to, like, maybe, you know, go to the shop and buy a loaf of bread, because you never get that loaf of bread. And so what this does is it sends the message to, you know, the kids, for example, that when you come into some money, you go and buy bread or the equivalent of bread. When you look at how people relax, if I may put it that, if I may use the word relax, what happens over the weekends is that, you know, families will go out very often to a place where, you know, maybe parents can have nyama choma, maybe have a drink, and kids are on the swings and stuff like that. So again, the way to have a good time, and food and good times, I mean, they've always gone together.
Yeah.
But then the thing is, those places where you have a good time, you are not necessarily getting the best nutrition. It's not necessarily the healthiest. And I also know, I mean, it's a joke in many, especially we people from Western and that kind of thing, that when you have visitors, you don't give them greens. I mean, greens sio chakula. It's not food it's not food for visitors, you know. So that's why I'm saying that it's a bit complex, the relationship between food and a good time and wealth and progression, which is why, as you say, I think this is one of the reasons why you find that issues of obesity and things like that seem to be growing amongst the lower income families, because that relationship between food and doing well and being wealthy, it's ingrained, it is planted in ways that are not so obvious. You know, you may not think.
Taught.
It's not really. It's really what people do. Yeah, and I'm not. I really don't know what the solution is. But I mean, what you're doing here with this information and a podcast like this, I think it is one of the ways in which we can really help people to understand.
Yes.
But I think little habits also need to sort of change, so that people can make better choices earlier on in life. Yeah.
It makes me think about, so growing up in high school, there were people who used to have these exorbitant nice foods. We used to hear about these schools. In my very good school, we used to have beans, lots of beans, and lots of dengu. Dengu is, I've been told it's called what now? Mung beans.
Green
grams. Oh, green grams. Or mung beans.
Yeah.
And I remember one time making that for my friends in my house when they had visited. And one of the girls was just categorical. She does not eat those things. So I asked her, why would you not eat them? Because I find them fine. And she said those are foods of poverty. And this was the first time I had encountered this concept that green grams are foods of poverty. And it never struck me then, but then it made me understand that, like you're saying, nuanced cultural things, so that if my friends are coming to visit, I can't make them foods of poverty, green grams and beans. Then I will be looking for, you know, something more, whatever, meat and things. So I like that you brought that out. It's a subtle, nuanced cultural context.
Yeah.
I just thought about that and that statement. So we'll talk about a little bit about micronutrients and then move into maybe a conversation about what leadership, for example, would be doing. So like I said, in my high school, there's lots of beans and lots of green grams. And I don't know what's happening in the food space at the moment for our children in boarding, like people who are not at home, primary schools in rural areas. You may have, you know, sort of some experiences with that. But micronutrients are those, they're small molecules. So for our audience, micronutrients are small essential amounts of like vitamins. So they're not the big things that we know that are calorie building or giving you energy. So the big things are carbohydrates, proteins and starch. Those are macronutrients. Micronutrients are elemental, usually from like metals, so zinc, magnesium, folic acid, and things like that. And there's a big thing now. In fact, recently I had a 25-year-old tell me she's been asked to take some magnesium or manganese, and I was like, why would you be taking supplements for that at the age of 25?
And to those in bananas, magnesium and all.
Thank you. So this is a thing that I'm really getting surprised by, the growth and the use of supplements. We'll get to like older ladies in menopause, but even for young people, having these discussions that someone told me that I can sleep better if I take magnesium, and you're 25. Why do you need to... Well, first, why are you having sleep problems at that age? But what are your thoughts on this, the use of micronutrients generally in people generally? What are you a fan? Do you know about them?
Okay, I mean, obviously I'm not an expert on those micronutrients and things like that. But maybe I could just dial back a little bit. You know, you talked about our kids in primary school, in boarding schools, and how they are being fed. And I think we were speaking about this earlier.
Yeah.
When you look at the budgets that are allocated to schools, they really cannot afford to feed growing children well. You know, it's all just about stomach fill. So, you know, you can make them uji, you make them ugali with greens. It's not a balanced diet. So they are already missing out on a lot of things. And they spend a lot of time, a lot of time in school. And even for day schools and primary schools, you'll find there's a lot of programs to encourage children to stay in school. They give them uji, yeah. But the thing is, uji is carbs, yeah. And I think that's why I said it's a bit complex, because you understand there's no money, there's no what, but I know that there have been some programs where they try to grind like legumes, those green grams, those dengus you were talking about, and add them to the uji so that it's a bit more nutritionally dense, you know, a bit more nutritious for the kids. But in terms of micronutrients and everything that is happening, okay, so first of all, I think that there is a difference between, you know, like people in the urban areas, the so-called people with it, the people who are exposed to social media, they are more exposed to information about things like that. And I hear these days doctors have a hard time because we patients, first of all, we Google, we Google our symptoms and what the solution should be. And then when we go to the doctor, we are just waiting. If the doctor doesn't mention what we saw on Google, we are like, this doctor doesn't know what they are doing. So I think there is a lot of exposure to information amongst people who may not have filters that can really help them sort of gauge whether or not that information is right for them or not right for them. So that's one thing. But I think the other thing is, just as you said, when people's socioeconomic status improves, they start eating more posh things, which are not necessarily more nutritious, or which are actually not, or maybe they're not nutritious at all. So for me, I've always been of the mind that, you know, eat everything, unless it's just something that you just don't like, you don't like the taste of it, or you're allergic to it. Me, I think that you should just eat, you know, mixed things, different things, varied things, to increase your chances of, you know, just getting everything that you need. But then there's also a dangerous trend, I think, and it's I actually had an experience with this last week. I was at an in-person training, and during lunchtime, one of the participants said to somebody else, "Please pass me the salt," and that person said, "Salt is not good for you," you know, and this person who asked for the salt was taken aback. I mean, but you see that there's also that attitude: salt is not good for you, but we know that salt,
is
sodium,
important,
it
yes.
does play a role in your
Yeah.
body. And if your doctor has said to you, don't take salt, there's a reason for it, and that doesn't apply to everybody else. So there's a tendency to make certain foods or certain nutrients or certain micronutrients fashionable or not fashionable, good or not good, without actually looking at yourself, taking yourself into consideration. What do you need? What's good for you? What might you be lacking? How can you boost? Based on what you generally eat. So I think it's really a question of information in the wrong hands. Whereas there's those people who just don't have access to certain things. You might find people in rural areas who are eating a lot of sweet potatoes because that's what is available, and there's nothing wrong with sweet potatoes, but if that's the only thing that you're eating, then obviously it can have an impact on you. So there's also a certain inequality in access to, on the one hand, foods. And the micronutrients, but then on the other hand, information
about
and what to do or how to filter that information.
I like that thought, that, and you've brought that aspect quite clearly, probably as a gap in how we are handling food for this. So too much information in the wrong hands is this magnesium business of 25-year-old, and even having the knowledge that we need the micronutrients, but instead of looking for where they are in terms of sources of food, then we are being sold, or it's being marketed as a supplement rather than let's get into the kitchen and have the same supplements. And this inequality with the lack of, or even the lack of information. So like I find this, maybe I've seen it quite a bit, and I used to see it when I was working. You'd find, like where I worked in Machakos, nzuo is one of the beans, and it is very prominent. But I used to think if nzuo can grow there, then even other beans can grow there. But culturally, that's what they're used to, sort of using. And too much nzuo gives you constipation and intestinal obstruction.
Oh my!
So I used to have to deal. Yes, too much. So perhaps part of the work that we'll be doing is having these conversations, even in terms of food security and what we're doing about food as a country, and giving availability to all places to be able to access and say, you can plant bay leaves in Isiolo and use them. But we don't think, like from that perspective, which is quite interesting.
And I think also maybe we sort of don't do enough research because food is very sensitive. I mean, you tell me, don't eat nzuo. It's not good for you. But that's what my mother ate. I mean, if it was good enough for my mom, it's good enough. It's good enough for me.
Yeah.
But if you can demonstrate to me that, okay, this is what happens if you eat too much of this, that is why we are encouraging you to add this or to to include this or to change this, then it makes more sense. But then you see, we also just generally don't have the facts to back up our claims, and so people resist. I think
it's coincidental that you say that, because we never, as doctors, went out to the community to tell them how much intestinal obstruction we were getting in the hospital. So they'd come and we sort that out. You have surgery and we have to open up the bowels and empty, and then we close you up and send you back home.
Yeah.
I didn't
want to blame you.
Food for thought. And that's why I like this podcast, because I'm also continuously learning, and I'm a very broad thinker. And these conversations, then, this is something that we would be talking about. I've raised this couple of times, even with the Ministry of Health and our health leadership. One of the supplements that we use a lot in pregnancy is for iron. And we have iron deficiency in this country, which really amazes me because of the amount of green vegetables that we have. But we do have a problem with iron being deficient, and girls having very heavy periods and getting pregnant when they're already iron deficient. And for a very long time, as government, we used to supplement the iron with something called IFAS, which is tablets of iron. And I spoke about this, I can't remember where. Our hospital, the antenatal clinic behind, we used to have a lot of these pills thrown as women were leaving the clinic. And for a long time, I used to talk to women. When I started talking to them, they said, that thing tastes so bad.
I was going to say that. I was going to say that thing smells horrible. You put it in your handbag handbag is going to stink. And I won't lie to you, I was one of those.
Oh,
I didn't throw it behind the clinic, but then I just sort of wouldn't take it. I certainly wouldn't take it the way I was supposed to. I would maybe take one once in a while so that I can say, yes, I'm taking. But I just couldn't stomach that thing. It's awful.
It smells bad, it tastes bad, and then it also gives you constipation, and then your stools get dark, and it's whole drama. But it was interesting that for years, no one ever asked the women, we've put you on iron tablets, but your iron is not, your levels are still not going up. The women would never say it until I started doing community work and talking to women. They'd be like, Daktari, have you eaten?
We
have
just
you tasted
we
that
just
stuff?
wouldn't take it.
Yeah. So at least now we have different things, but like you said, lower areas or very rural areas, this is the only supplement that is being availed to these women, and they continue to have anemia. And anemia, if you're not aware in the audience, if your blood level is already low when you're pregnant, you are also at risk of bleeding after delivery. And that's one of the biggest causes of maternal mortalities, deaths in even the country. We remain, sub-Saharan Africa continues to lead. We are leaders in this maternal bleeding, dying from bleeding, which is called postpartum hemorrhage. Which I think if the women also then were helped to understand, if this gap of why do I give you iron made sense to the women, like you're saying, it would be a game changer so that you're not getting pregnant when your iron levels are low.
Yeah. But you know how people perceive doctors in our society. I mean, a doctor is a well-educated, highly knowledgeable person. You don't challenge the doctor. So I mean, if I come to you and I say, look, that thing won't go down, and I'm telling you that thing cannot go down, and then you just dismiss me or you don't give me an option, I mean, I'll sort myself out.
Yeah, that's really sad. If you're a woman out there, I'm always encouraging people, ask questions, come with a notebook, challenge your doctor. This one I might get called out because there are people who do not like being challenged, but I think you're right. If we continue to put that sort of power play thing, then we're not going to make any developments or headway. So like I said, like the anemia thing is a classic example. You don't talk to the doctors don't listen if they're told, and then you just make the decision that I will not be taking this. The person who suffers will be both doctor and patient when I'm trying to save your life because of bleeding, and then you could easily lose your life because of bleeding from that. So bringing the conversation a little background to food, and I like how you said that your mom was so wise. I happened to meet your mom, so I feel very privileged. She was very wise. The thing of not forcing children to eat and giving them autonomy to make that decision, that do I want to eat today or don't I want to eat? I don't like this, I don't like that, I find that very powerful. And I'm not very sure how many parents are at that level of asking that question, do you want to eat? And this is what we're having today. Choose and then make a decision. But I find it powerful that young people can be given autonomy to make decisions and even perhaps challenge where parents are, sort of going like this, like that.
No, to be honest, I'm not really sure. I don't know whether my mom's intention was to give us autonomy. I think she was just being practical. We didn't have a fridge, and I mean, it's not like we had lots of money and stuff like that to waste food. So I think it was just from that point of view. But then the outcome was, at least for me, realizing that I can actually say, I don't want to eat this. As long as, I mean, it's not like she was saying, if you don't want this, I'm going to give you this. It was that this is what I have. If you don't want it, pole kwako. Maybe tomorrow we are going to have something else. But that whole idea of giving options, it's also another way of building children's self-efficacy. So there are many vegetables. Yeah, we know vegetables are good for you, and there are very many vegetables. You know, if you could ask your child, do you want to have carrots or green peppers today? You know, that's giving them an option. Yeah, and both of them are vegetables,
Yes, yeah.
and you increase the likelihood that they're going to eat something good. You know, without necessarily breaking the bank. So for me, this is something that I would encourage. And then also talking to them about, where the food comes. If you can, help them to grow something, plant, let them plant a bean in a pot and see it grow, and then they harvest it. So help them to gain knowledge about where food comes from, talk about what it does, show them how it is prepared. I mean, you were talking earlier about the school diet. We went to the same school. I was so skinny. You would don't see me like this now. There was a time. Because it's not so much about those foods, because I love those things. I mean, I still eat those things, but also how they're prepared. You can make them tasty. So even through food, you can develop certain life skills, as we were saying, and make it more interesting for children to choose the food that is good for them. Go with them to the market, as you're picking tomatoes and talking about why you picked this one, but you didn't pick that one. And yes, that can lead to autonomy, but it also builds a certain basic knowledge that can help them to make better choices when it comes to what they eat.
So since you work a lot with young people, how do you find the interaction? So say I'm a parent, and you're going to eat what is on the table, take it or leave it, and I'm an adolescent, and I say, I don't want to eat this one, or and then someone labels me as being rude and difficult. I don't know if that's something that you've come across, and how do you navigate that type of conversation where the child has autonomy and is, sort of sound mind, and validly says, I could have broccoli, but now there's no broccoli, and you say I'm rude.
Okay. I think we can look at it from the parents' point of view, and we can also look at it from the child's point of view. I mean, I sympathize 100% with parents. I mean, you're providing, your resources are limited, you're probably tired, and that kind of thing. You've put this on the table. I can understand why a parent would say, look, this is what is available, you take it or leave it. And that in a way, that is actually what my mom did. But I think that maybe the challenge there comes in the fact that first of all, the way the communication is handled. Take it or leave it. My house, my rules. And I know parents, you said something about being called out on that. For me, that thing of my house, my rules, I always ask, where is that 15-year-old's house if it's not this house? But then again, this is where having conversations about what is available, what are the options. We are talking about food groups, bread, chapati, pasta, what else? I mean, there's many things that will give you carbs. There's many things that will give you proteins. There's many things. So there could be options, and the options could also come in the way of, today is dengu, tomorrow is beans, the next day is, something else, so that there is a day. And this is something that I used to do, have a menu and make sure that you include in that menu at least something that everybody likes. So the person who doesn't like chapati knows that on chapati day, okay, it's not going to be my favorite day, but the next day we have pasta, and I like pasta. So there are ways in which you can play around with what is available to give options without necessarily breaking the bank. But then also you could encourage them one day or some days to prepare what they like, to prepare what they like and share with everybody. Because the fact is they are individuals and they won't necessarily like like the same things. And, you know, much as maybe we might want all our children to be the same, especially the same in the characteristics that we like, they are not always the same. And I think that we can respect that individualism in little ways. But then there's also something specifically about teenager. You know, at that age, those people can eat. Those people can
they eat. I
And-
watch them.
and it's incredible. But you know, they eat because they are burning energy like crazy. Okay. Obviously, I'm not a scientist or anything like that, but,
But
you know,
they
the
have
story goes that
high
they burn energy
metabolic.
even as they sleep.
Yes,
You know,
yeah.
they're really growing a lot and stuff like that. So one of the things that I would maybe be cautious about is, you know, how they are labeled when they eat. I mean, like a teenager could eat 6 chapatis and it feels incredibly a lot. But maybe this is a teenager who is playing rugby in school or football or whatever. Aside from the growing up, they're going to burn all those calories.
Yes.
I mean, if you and I ate 6 chapatis, I mean, first of all,
A
they
month.
wouldn't even really go
wouldn't
down.
fit, yeah.
So to avoid labeling them as being greedy, for example, you know, or saying things like, you don't even know where the money comes from. I mean, as a parent, one of your roles is to provide food for the children. So to recognize that they actually do need to eat probably more than anyone else, and not to make them feel guilty about eating, about the food, especially if they've come from boarding. You know, we talked about boarding school and the way budgets are such that it's very difficult for the boarding schools to really feed the children properly, not just from a balanced diet point of view, but also from a quantity. From a quantity point of view. So conversations around food can also lead to what can I? They can confuse the children. They can label the children in a negative manner. They can build those habits we were talking about, that when I have a little extra money, I spend it on food and I spend it on luxury foods. But then you can turn them around and, you know, make them conversations about you know, what you can do, how you can stretch your shilling in a nutrition, you know, with nutritional foods and kinds of things. But again, it all just goes back to being intentional.
I really like that. If there's something that the podcast today is doing, is showing that intentionality as a parent from a food perspective, from a food and nutrients perspective. I want to talk a little bit about your personal experience, if you may share. Pregnancy. When I started work in medicine, there was a concept of eating for 2, which it drove me mad because pregnant women were doing the most to eat for 2 for themselves and for their fetuses. Did you experience that? And where did you get information about what to eat when you were pregnant?
Okay, so I think that generally as a person, knowledge seeking is one of my values. So I knowledge seek, let me put it that way. So I mean, I read a lot and stuff like that. So I had quite a lot of knowledge. I understood about things like cravings. So when I started craving Sprite, I generally don't consume a lot of added sugars. So I imagine that craving was just because I needed the energy and maybe I wasn't getting, because I think cravings are also sort of your body telling you need this. Because I was craving 2 things. One was soda, specifically Sprite. I'm not advertising. and meat. I'm not really a red meat person. I don't really enjoy red meat, and I especially beef, but then I would crave those 2. And I think that is really what my body needed. We've been talking about iron supplementation and things like that. I was a bit low on iron supplements. So I had cravings for those, but I don't really remember, like, you know, eating for 2 kind of thing, as in eating big portions or eating all the time. I don't really remember doing that. But as I said, I had the knowledge, and I had a doctor. I was going I was going for regular checkups and getting that advice. In fact, after my first child, I didn't add weight. I mean, I came out of maternity and I could put on the jeans that I used to put on before the pregnancy, which suggests that, I mean, the weight that I put on was the baby and the water and everything. It was a different story for the subsequent one. Yeah. So, but we were talking earlier about information and myths and things like that. I think this is actually one of those common myths. I wish the myth was, be more conscious about the nutritional balance of what you're eating. Yeah.
Rather than just putting in more stuff.
Yeah.
I'll attach to this video a little chart for what we expect in terms of weight gain during pregnancy, the actual expectations, their ranges, and their conversations that ideally should be had between the doctors and the nutritionists and the moms, the patients themselves. And every so often I've found women who have not had these conversations and they find themselves pregnant with 25 kilos on, and they go like, but I'm just pregnant with the baby and the placenta and the water, but I've added this much weight. So I'm not very sure how much doctors are doing to talk about what people should be eating into pregnancy, and even supporting people with exercise and exercise during pregnancy. I find a lot of women, even within the clinic, coming and saying, what can I do? Can I run? Can I swim? Can I, I've been told to just chill and stay in bed, and I want to avoid miscarriages. And that's part of the myths that I think we haven't really deciphered as doctors, and having those conversations and being open about those conversations about weight within and out of pregnancy. I've been caught out by my patients. I work in fertility and I don't treat patients above the BMI of 35. And that is a very tough conversation to have with someone, because it increases the risk for miscarriages when your BMI is already high. So if you don't know, now you know. But it also increases the risk for pregnancy problems. I spoke about obesity and gestational diabetes, which is the sugar bit, but moms who are big before they get pregnant will sometimes get very small babies, low birth weight, and those babies end up in the nursery. The assumption is that if you're big, the baby will also be big. The blood vessels and how they restructure can become thinner and the babies become smaller, so there's a risk for low birth weight as well. So yeah, I'll attach a chart just for the ranges which are normal within pregnancy. Now let's come to where you are at in age. You may want to say that you are 28 by age.
Doctor, you're a doctor. If you say I'm 28, I'm 28.
You'll take the 28. But coming into where you're at, the stage you are in life, are there things that people are discussing around you in terms of where you're at in age with food and nutrition and supplements? My thing now at the moment is finding menopausal women or women, who have stopped having their periods on every supplement under the face of the earth, which I call a pill burden, because then you wake up in the morning and you have to remember to take ashwagandha and moringa and then magnesium, I don't know, at 10 o'clock and zinc at this time. And all we're doing is just taking all these supplement things. So I don't know what is happening within your circles that doctors and mothers may need to address.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many conversations about what you need to do at this age, once you hit 50, as you're approaching 60 and that kind of thing. And you're right, there's a lot of exchanges about what you should take, take ginger, take moringa, take vitamin, I don't know what, take I don't know what. For me, honestly, I've always struggled with taking pills of one kind or the other, even when I know it's good for me. I mean, I'm like, surely doctor, there's no antibiotic that I can take once a week, kind of thing. So all that supplementation is a struggle for me.
Okay.
And then I'm also not very sure what is really good for me. I started taking some multivitamins a few, like maybe a couple of years ago. And I promise you, doctor, I felt my heart was beating so fast, even when I'm just not doing anything. I can't say that it was because of those vitamins or anything, but I was examining my life and I was like, this is the only change that I made. This must be it. And I just stopped taking them and I've not gone back to them, and the heart rate went back to normal. So I'm gonna just leave it at that. So yes, there's a lot of conversations about what you should, what is working and what is not working. But I think if you think about the remark we made earlier about salt, and people saying salt is not good for you, I think it's important to understand yourself, to know your body, your history. I mean, by the time you're 50, 60, I think you have a good medical health history that you can draw back on and really try to understand things about your body that you have learned over time, so that if you're thinking that you need to do some supplementation, it's also based on some facts. I'm a firm believer in body, mind, spirit health. If you know what you know what I mean. So doing the exercises, having that balanced diet, sleeping properly, and living a life that allows you to do those things. So prioritizing your exercise. For example, I have in my schedule the days I go for my exercises. It's there in my calendar. It's not just something that I say. Making the social connections and the relationships that allow you to have peace of mind, so that you can sleep better and that kind of thing. But also understanding, I think all these supplements are also made from like food. See, that iron is extracted from something in the earth. And which you can also find in some foods. So really trying to again be more conscious and more intentional about the mix of foods that you eat, while also, because I also say, I mean, after everything that we have gone through, raising kids, corporate career, KPIs and performance and life, surely you can eat things that you enjoy. And supplement. I don't know if there are any nice tasting supplements. I don't know. I've not come across. So I have a personal bias against supplements. It's a very personal bias because I don't like pills. I don't like things that don't taste nice. I'm really resistant to. I'm really resistant to adding things. I mean, I've just been taking my coffee black with a little non-dairy creamer. And then you tell me to add moringa powder. I mean, I'm really, I'm resistant. Personally, I'm resistant to things like that. I guess if you told me that if I don't do that, I will drop tomorrow. Maybe I might do it. But if there's an option, I always prefer to have the option. But I think for me, the thing that worries me the most is the generalistic nature of the information. I know I have friends who are on hormone replacement therapies, and I mean, they probably need it. I mean, there are reasons. I'm not. I have got people who they are not yet menopausal or whatever it is, but in anticipation, makes me think of, like, if you were to have an injection, the nurse would always tell you, don't be tense, because if you're tense, then injection is going to be more painful. I mean, which is easier said than done. I also don't like injections. But then I think also, if you're the kind of person who anticipates pain, anticipates problems, you're already thinking, menopause, I'm going to be sweating, I'm going to be feeling hot, I'm going to become temperamental and things like that. You're already building an environment that will actually make those things come true. So I know that we approach things differently. So for me, for example, I'm just very matter of fact. This is where I am. So I feel a little bit hot. I'll remove my jacket and life goes on. I'll become more particular about the fabrics that I wear, breathable fabrics and things like that, because this is just where I am.
I had another guest as well who said that they've really struggled with hot flashes, but they said the way they approached menopause, she felt made it quite different for her as well. She said this is happening and these are the flashes, but that also means I can't wear heavy coats and things like that. And she says she's managed to sail through despite, sort of those difficulties. But I like what you've said, the generalization that I've woken up and now I have insomnia. My friend tells me this is what I'm taking. I jump on the wagon and take that stuff. My particular bias as a medic towards supplements is, whilst yes, we can say that this is an iron supplement, the iron is bound into something that carries it. And that thing that carries it, for some reason, a lot of supplements will not say what that is. What is that you have attached to the iron? So yes, I will get the iron, but
what else
is binding that? And I'm very picky. And when I speak about it in public, people go like, you're anti-supplements. I'm just like, I know the iron comes from liver and red meats and, like you said, earth and the egg yolk. So I'm like, but I can have that instead of like taking the tablet, which I don't know what is bound to. And then unregulated markets. So I can wake up today and start making supplements and label them. How do you know that it is iron? Just because Dr. Muchiri has said that this is an iron supplement and it's very good. So my bias is there, that I feel that as a scientist, I've not managed to test all these supplements myself and then see what is these compounds that people have added. And for this reason, then I'm very pro find the micronutrients in the foods in which they are. And they're also micronutrients for a reason. They're usually very small amounts. There's an imagination that I now need to be taking calcium. The calcium requirement for a menopausal woman is about 1,200 milligrams, which if you take a cup of milk, you would have that. Milk also has its issues like with cholesterol, but I'm not taking 5 cups of milk to get
every
to
day.
one sort of calcium, whatever it is. Then there's also, like you're saying, having the information without the knowledge to what we call translate. You take calcium, but you don't go out into the sun, so you don't get the vitamin D that helps you process the calcium. Therefore, the calcium is useless. So then we're finding lots of women who are having calcium stones in the kidneys, calcium stones in the bladder, because they're really taking the calcium to help with their bones, but they're not connecting the pieces of the other things. You need other things to absorb that calcium and help into the bone. So I really like that. And for the public, this is, sort of how, this is my personal opinion, you can get all these supplements and they are coming from foods. Coincidentally, HRT in itself, now we call it medical hormone treatment for menopause. There are some that are plant-based. They're actually derived from plant foods and phytoestrogens. So again, taking back to just don't take things because your friend has recommended or some person has a new brand product that they're marketing in terms of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that self-awareness becomes really important in this situation. Not just knowing your health history, but also understanding even just what do you eat. If you just go into your kitchen and look at your pantry or you open your fridge, what do you tend to have a lot of? And then maybe then you can see, okay, maybe I don't get enough of this, therefore I'm going to add this. Because your friend's fridge will be different. That's so what your friend needs to add is different, or what your friend needs to remove is different. And then also what works for somebody else may not work for you for very many reasons, including even the mental approach, But I think it's also important to accept that your body is changing. It is slowing down. I mean, we see or we hear all these stories about like old people not needing so much sleep. I mean, you could read, you could wake up and read,
and
or you could,
things.
you could wake up and do your laundry, or do you. So the point I'm trying to say is, rather than approaching it as, oh, this is something terrible that's happening to me, I have to find a solution. Even just saying, okay, this is the stage I am at, bring it on. Already, I think
Different.
makes a big makes a really big difference. It's just like labor. You know, those people who scream during labor, because that is how they approach pain.
Yeah.
But then there's people who just
get on with it.
They just get on with it. It's not that one person is feeling more pain than the other, or that there is more pain for one person than the other. It's the way you approach it. So I would say that is a way to approach it. And that is not to say that there are those situations. I think I'm lucky because I really have. I left corporate life like 8 years ago. So I think when you're out and about and you're working in your own office, you've got more flexibility around how you dress, which windows you open, what you do when you take a break, and that can be different for people who, you know, you're in an office situation, you're going to give a presentation, and we've had these situations where you're giving a big, you've got this important presentation, and then you break out in a sweat or whatever it is, and it can be you can feel embarrassed, especially if people around you don't understand what is happening. I mean, because there are certain conversations that we don't necessarily have. And I'm not saying that you have to go around with a sign on your forehead saying that I'm in menopause and whatever it is, but also just letting critical people around you understand what is going on can be helpful in terms of giving support.
Cool. So we have a segment at the very end where I tell you what the previous guest, a quote or something they've left for you, and then you will have the opportunity to pass that on to the next guest, and then I'll tell them what you've said.
So I have to remember something.
You can come up with something, a quote, but I need to tell you what the other person said, and now I'll have to remember it off the top of my head. The point was learning from younger people, and there were, you know, that came out quite clearly, in fact, with two of my guests, that we have a lot to learn from people who are behind us. So I'd like to hear what your thought or opinion is on that, and then you will give us a quote or something that you would want us to pass on to our next guest, and we'll have a discussion with them about that. So yeah, what do you think?
What do I think about learning from people who are younger than us or behind us? I mean, I think we can learn from everybody and anybody. We become set in our ways as we grow older. I mean, we get comfortable doing things a certain way, or, you know, this thing has always worked for me, or this, I already have this information, so I'm not really looking for new information. You know, younger people can come with a completely different perspective. You know, there are new technologies, there are new discoveries, there's new knowledge. So I was having a conversation with somebody recently about, I think, and we're going to come back to doctors and the things that you tell people. So I think that one of the messages that a lot of people get from health workers is eat complex carbohydrates. Complex carbohydrates are good. So the message then becomes, complex carbohydrates are good, simple carbohydrates are bad. Therefore, sweet potatoes, dumas, cassava, all those things are good. Okay? So you find somebody is eating a kilo of sweet potatoes every day because sweet potatoes are good. Because
that's what
there's a lot of information around that is not given. So they're not talking about portions, or brown things are good for diabetics. But, you know, it's all about sugar, all those things you consume, and it still becomes sugar in your body. But with new discoveries and things like that, you know, you begin to understand, actually, I ought to explain to this person, the diabetic, I have a diabetic caretaker, he will not add sugar to his tea. But I see him buying Coke, you know, to him, sugar is the crystals. But you see, today, I think a health worker today will understand that I have to explain. So I think you can learn from young people because they're exposed, they see things differently. They can, you know, help you to have a different perspective. So, yeah, I mean, knowledge is not limited to age.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. So what would you say in terms of the quote or something that you would want to leave. It can be a quote about life, it can be a quote about health, it can be a quote about the work that you're doing that we will discuss with the next guest.
Okay. So I think I'm gonna make this about adolescence.
Okay.
And what I would invite the next guest is to think about, or maybe to make a comment on, is a lot. There's a perception that adolescents are disruptive. They are rude. They are moody. They are what? But the thing is, I mean, what would happen if our adolescents were so aligned with us as parents that they never mature? Yeah, that's the thought.
So adolescents, I like that. They've come up quite a bit on this podcast, actually, because we had someone asking us a question or talking about teenage pregnancies as well. We've talked about food and nutrition and being forced as an adolescent to eat certain things. So I might get an adolescent specialist so that we can discuss the matters of adolescence. So thank you.
Or you could get a panel.
Oh yeah,
You bring a couple of adults and some and a few adolescents and some adolescents. Yeah.
For our people at the back, that is our next one for season 2. So thank you very much for that conversation. It was quite refreshing. Also making me think as we go along in terms of what we need to fill the gaps for. So this has been Filling the Gap podcast with Dr. Muchiri. If you have learned something about what doctors and mamas may not tell you, please feel free to like, subscribe, share this with your friends, family, sisters, daughters, mothers, fathers, brothers, and we will see you on the next episode. Thank you very much.